Follow me on a journey where no one has ever been before. Listen to the Cali Effect.
Good evening, YouTube. You guys are now watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Today we're going to be going over the Zing Master Race deck profile. I'm really not going to go into detail of what cards there are because all of the cards are here. And that's where we're really just going to go over how this deck operates and what was my initial thought process on building this deck. The first and foremost thing I wanted to say is that Zings have an excellent matchup against everything. They don't have bad matchups. They lose to cards, not decks. Burning Abyss, their monsters aren't stronger than ours. And Shadows, anything that they just try to massively destroy or, try to get over us wise, we'll just replenish through our back row, or we'll stop them through our back row or replenish through our monsters. So with that being said, we don't lose to deck themes, we lose to cards. Now there's a couple of cards that we just completely lose to, one being Abyss Dweller, Armades, Ivgishki Miro Geist, type Mystical Space Typhoon, ironically, because they'll go like activate Typhoon, chain Torrential Tribute, and we'll lose to stuff like that. And I mean that's really what is essentially hurts Zings in the long run. But this deck profile is going to be interesting because I'm going to be going over the cards. Now there's a couple of glaring interesting cards that I wanted to point out. First being the Mathematician and Archfiend Marmot Nefariousness. Archfiend Marmot Nefariousness kind of defeats the purpose of, forcing the opponent to play with us. Because if you play in real life and the opponent knows that you're playing Zing, they're not going to attack into you. I mean, they're going to wait until they're able to make a specific card to just get over your monsters like Miro Geist, Dweller, Armades, so you won't get your Zing monsters effects. And that becomes pretty problematic later on in the game. So to combat that, I'm playing Mathematician and Archfiend Marmot Nefariousness. Nefariousness gives no fucks if your opponent battles with you or not, because you're going to activate Nefariousness, destroy any of your Zing monsters, special summon itself, and then trigger your Zing monsters to special summon another card from your graveyard. Now, a lot of people would think that Nefariousness wouldn't miss timing, but Nefariousness has an interesting clause called "and if you do," and that's what allows the Zing monsters effects to still activate, and you to just put like Chain Link 5 on your cards, and just get a whole bunch of multiple effects. So it's pretty neat and awesome how Archfiend Eater works with that. But the biggest problem that I found out is that it was like a level 4 beast monster, and there's no ways to send level 4 beast monsters immediately from the graveyard to the deck. So that's where Mathematician comes in. Now, Mathematician not only sends our Zing monsters like Suanni and Buy-in for if we do need to activate Path, or if we do need a mass Chameleon target. It also sends Chiwen if we do, to set up for grave for when our Zing monsters do get destroyed. We can just bounce back Chiwen instead of special summoning Chiwen out our own rights. He provides a free draw when destroyed by battle, and also he puts Nefariousness in graveyard, so I felt that was very solid. The biggest reason why we're running triple Mystical Space Typhoon is because, like I said, we lose 2 cards, not decks. That being said, Vanity's Emptiness has been an extremely good card for a lot of people to just main board, screw sideboarding. They want to stop us completely. And I feel that I don't really want to lose to cards like that, so I'm going to main board Mystical Space Typhoon. Yes, it's a pretty big cost to play if you're playing the wrong deck, but since hat have decreased, and since I can force hands to miss timing by using cards like Mystical Space Typhoon, I'm more than happy to main triple copies to stop Vanity's Emptiness and stuff like that, because you guys have to remember, we lose to that. Also, it opens up more cards for our sideboard options when the opponent does when they do start to side in DeFi, macros, and all that other stuff. We already have 3 Mystical Space Typhoons in here, so we can just address their other problems other than their back row cards that they're siding. Now, I've seen a lot of builds drop down to 2 Zing Path, but to be honest with you, I can open double Zing Path, and as long as I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm playing the deck correctly, they'll both get used in time. So I really decided to use 3, especially since I do have Mathematician to fuel Zing Path to the graveyard. Dualities are for dualities. You don't special summon a lot on your turn. If need be, you can use your Zing monster's effect to special summon on their turn, so you can actually use Duality and go ahead and do whatever you want. Forbidden Lance is an extremely interesting card in here, mainly because, like I said, if your opponent tries to force your monsters to miss timing, for example, if they go activate Typhoon and you're like, okay, and then they'll chain Mirror Force, well, guess what? Now I'm going to chain Forbidden Lance. Forbidden Lance makes the monster unaffected by their Mirror Force, meaning the monster stays in the field, meaning the monster probably would go through with battle, more than likely lose the battle, but that's perfectly fine. We didn't miss timing in that sense. It also helps us get over D-Prison. It helps us get over a lot of just really good stuff. I feel like Forbidden Lance is extremely solid. Also, keep in mind the monster that you're more often than not synchro summoning to make is probably going to be your last resort of a monster. So, for example, if I'm going into Baxia, Brightness of Yangzing, and my opponent goes Space-Time Trap Hole. Now, granted, I'll still get Baxia's effect, or then I'll lose the monster. So that's not really nice. So Forbidden Lance pretty much protects us from any of those things that would happen and allows us to go into our plays. I do not like Supply Squad in this deck anymore. At first, I did like it. Then I didn't like it. Now I did like it. And now I probably just drop it for another copy of Breakthrough Skill. Breakthrough Skill just... I'll talk about that later, but Breakthrough Skill is really good. Supply Squad is one of those cards that you do not want to draw into late game when you need a certain amount of cards, when you're hoping to draw something, or when you just need something good. Supply Squad is one of those cards you do not want to draw into. But ultimately, if you do start getting Supply Squad off, then you start plussing out. You start plussing so much, and the opponent can't handle that. Dark Hole in here is very interesting. Dark Hole, I don't necessarily use it to destroy the opponent's monsters. More often than not, sometimes I do want a Yangzing monster in graveyard on my turn, and the only way normally would be to destroy, attack into your opponent's monster. So Dark Hole really does come in handy when I have a Yangzing monster in the field that needs to be destroyed. And I have Chiwen engraved that needs to activate, so I'll just Dark Hole my own Yangzing monsters, gain my Supply Squad, gain my Yangzing creation, gain my Chiwen to the field, and then just synchro from there. So Dark Hole is a really good card in here, just because it allows you to destroy your own Yangzing monsters and trigger their effects. On to traps, I'm going to talk about Breakthrough Skill. Breakthrough Skill is godly in here. Like I said, I want to play 3, but Breakthrough Skill allows me to get over floodgate monsters like Winda, and it allows me to stop cards like Dweller when he enter battle and stuff like that. I really feel that I should be running maybe 3 copies of Breakthrough Skill and 2 copies of Skill Drain. Skill Drain's a really good card in here. I just don't like opening up every single time, and then I would need Bixi of the Yangzing to actually go, push forward for my deck. More often than not, when you do open up Skill Drain, you do win though, so it's whatever. The Needle Sailing is a very good tech in here. I don't really need to say anything else about that. The Torrential being a evacuation. Now, there are 2 trap cards that I am not running in here, and it's like a huge surprise to a lot of people. One being Solemn Warning, the other one being Bottomless, and actually there's a third one, Space Time Trap Hole. All of those cards are amazing, but first and foremost, Bottomless does not help me win games. Bottomless does not stop Dante. Bottomless does not stop Winda, and that puts me at a really bad position in this deck, since Dante and Winda are the cards I want to get rid of anyways. Solemn is a huge life point cost just to stop them from fusion summoning, or I'm sorry, for activating a fusion spell card, so I just kept that out. Space Time Trap Hole requires me to use life points, and I don't necessarily want to use life points to send a monster back to the top of the deck, because more often than not, I want that monster to attack into our monsters. So I have cards to not necessarily stop the summon of a monster, which is a good thing when you're playing against meta decks, but I also have cards that will stop whatever we're going against. This deck is extremely good at losing to just cards and out effects, and that's something I genuinely wanted to address with the Triple Space Typhoon. The Deep Prison, more often than not, the cards that I want to get rid of are deprisonable, like the hands, which completely screw our deck over, or anything like that of that sort. We just want to banish the monster as opposed to destroying it, such as Winda and stuff like that. As for the synchros, I feel that it's all pretty standard. We can make Unbreakable Star Eater. We can make Unbreakable Leo. Mistworm is a card that I would rather not have in here. If I were to take it out, it'll be a Crimson Blader, and then just keep on moving on from there, because Crimson Blader essentially locks out the mirror match, and it really hurts Shadows. So, I mean, maybe I could run a Crimson Blader in there to make the deck even better. A lot of people sleep on Ancient Sacred Wyvern. More often than not, when you summon Wyvern, it wins you the game. Your only tuner in the deck besides Mass Chameleon is Chiwen, so making Wyvern isn't really that hard for the deck. Vulcan's really good. Goyo's really good. Catastor I'd probably drop for something else. And the Honor Arc is extremely clutch, because there's times where you have 2 level 4 monsters on the field, where you'll have him and you need him in the graveyard, and you'll have him on the field. You make Honor Arc, snatch your monster, and just keep on going about your day. This deck is extremely good at against the meta, because I main board a lot of things to stop the meta or to counter the meta. But besides that, I feel that its worst matchups will probably be something like Madolches, because they come out of the blue and I'm not really extremely prepared for them. Which is why, another reason why I want to main board more effect negation, because if you negate the monster's effects, you win. But the deep prisons obviously become useless. The lances obviously become useless. Typhoons become mediocre. There's just so many matchups that it makes them mediocre against, but that can always be addressed within the sideboard. I'm thinking Maxis, the third copy of Skill Drain, and stuff like that, which would just completely own the Madolche matchup. And I don't even know why I'm even mentioning Madolche, since they're not even a tier deck. But like I keep telling you guys, Yang Zings do not lose to decks, so you have to play it smartly so you won't lose to cards, because once you do that, then the game is already won. There's not much the opponent can do. With that being said, thank you guys for watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy.